I will go into my family's story. I'm going to take you down a lot of different roads today. I am truly the recipient of inherited freedom, and I'll share that with you here in a few minutes. My family has military service going all the way back to the French and Indian War, through the Revolutionary, World War I, Civil War, World War II, Vietnam. It covers the gamut. I was the first one really in my family not to serve in the military. So it behooved me to make sure that I capture those stories before they're lost. I think that's truly why I was put on planet Earth, to capture those stories so that people don't forget. So who am I? I am a 55-year-old male. Okay. I have a beautiful wife, Alice. She's not here today. We just celebrated our 32nd wedding anniversary. I'm very proud that I have a 29-year-old son, Garrett, who's here, and my 27-year-old daughter, Anna. I've introduced my friends and colleagues. The only one I did not introduce yet was Tim Foster, who's chewing on his salad. Him and I go way back to college, and I appreciate you folks coming. Jamie Donovan is here. I didn't introduce him as well. He's a colleague of mine at Ingle Martin. What groups do I get involved in? This is where I actually ask my wife forgiveness, not permission, when I pay dues to belong to these organizations. Folds of Honor, very, very strong group that provides education to fallen veterans' children. Purple Hearts United is an organization that tries to locate and provide lost Purple Hearts to family members who've been lost through the sands of time. I have 3 family members who you'll meet here soon, and their Purple Hearts are missing. So they're in this database. So if they're located, they know who to contact, and we'll have them. Honor Flight speaks for itself, taking veterans to the Washington memorials. Orphans Network, American World War II Orphans Network. There are tons and tons of people walking around planet Earth that are orphans from World War II. They have lost both parents. Maybe their mother died, right, during World War II or before World War II, and then their father died during the war. They're completely orphaned. So this is a complete network of World War II orphans. Military Writers Society of America is a group I'm a member of. Basically, anybody that writes a military book can be a member of that. But it's a good way to bounce ideas off and share stories. I am an author. I'm not here to hawk books today. I could care less if you buy one of my books. That'd be nice, but that's not why I'm here. Inherited Freedom, what you hear today, is the bulk of what my presentation is about, what's in this book right here. Those are my 2 grandfathers, and a lot of what I talk about today is in that book. These 2 books, I have a fictional character named Alan Voigt. It's historical fiction. Pre-World War II, during World War II, after World War II. I'm basically in South America hunting Nazis, and there's a big twist at the end. Okay? Flash forward to book number 4. This is nonfiction. This does not have a book cover yet, but it's going to be labeled 127067. That is the tattoo imprint on a man named Harry Rental who survived Auschwitz and Dachau. He died in 1984. That's a whole nother presentation of how I got his manuscript, but basically I'm trying to get it into a book format, and I hope to have that out next year. I have traveled the globe. I have been very fortunate in my career to be all over the world visiting battle sites. Very fortunate to be able to do that. I have met countless veterans over the years. I have interviewed probably, I think the last count I was up to 692 World War veterans that I have actually talked to and interviewed. It's been an amazing journey. Very, very privileged. But guess what? I was adopted. At 3 days old, this gentleman right back here, Jim Drake, Air Force veteran, and my wonderful mom, Regina, selfishly adopted me into their family. That was December of 1966. Okay? If they had not done that, these stories that I'm going to share with you today would have been lost to time. But I was adopted into their family. My mother was 19 and unwed, Buffalo, New York. I was put up for adoption, and they rescued me. Okay? And my life was inserted into this family, and these stories that I'm going to share with you would never have been captured. So thank you. So let me introduce you to my story. These 5 gentlemen, again, their stories would have been lost to the sands of time, and I'm going to work the room. That's what I do best, okay? How did my World War II journey begin? When I was at the age of 11, my grandmother handed me these 3 yellowed pieces of newspaper. Age 11. She handed me these newspaper clippings. These newspaper clippings are these 3 gentlemen right here, Norman, Thomas, and Harold. I have kept these with me that long. And this is what fueled my interest in World War II. Just these 3 little pieces of newspaper. The second thing that fueled my interest is my father, when I was 9 years old, bought me this canteen, this World War II canteen. I used to fill it with garden water. I used to drink out of it. I kept it right here. We played Army all day long. Well, flash forward. I started doing a little research on the canteen. Found out it was actually a World War I canteen. And here I am. My immune system is probably amazing because I drank out of a World War I canteen for years playing Army. Okay? Well, I've lost all my... There we go. All right, let me introduce you to my grandfather, Archie. This is my mom's father. He adopted my mother. Archie Houston. He was 35 years old when he went in 1943. 35 years old. His nickname was Pop. I have interviewed countless people that knew him, and three of the gentlemen that I've met, he taught them how to shave. Okay? He was part of the 558th Anti-Aircraft Artillery Battalion. So what did they do? They hauled around Europe with these Bofar cannons, these 40 millimeter cannons. This is a shell from one of those Bofar cannons. Those were used anti-aircraft a lot, protecting airfields, fuel depots, things like that. But that's what Archie did. He worked for 45 years for Bond Bread in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So guess what they naturally made him? They made him a cook. He led his battery B, he was the head cook. So all through Europe, he fed the troops. I have replicated a lot of these photos in Europe. That's Hotel Williams. Tim Foster was with me. We replicated this photo in Paris. That's my grandfather there. There he is again. And there he is reading the book to me when I was little. You got to love those pants. Okay? All right, but he's near and dear to my heart. He lived long enough. He lived to be 90 years of age. You can see where he died in 1998. Him and my grandmother are buried in the Veterans Cemetery up in Marietta. He lived long enough to see me married and to see my 2 children born. I was very fortunate that he lived that long. I miss him every day. 9th Army Air Corps. And there's his headstone there. Beautiful plot at the Marietta National Cemetery right near the wall. My grandmother's remembered on the back side. Morris Drake. This is my father, Jim Drake's father. He was 28 years old when he went into the Navy. He was also older than most. He was part of the USS Culebra Island, and basically they were part of the 7th Fleet. What did they do? This ship performed electrical repairs on damaged ships, aircraft carriers, cruisers, destroyers, whatever. They would go in and make repairs on those ships. He told stories of, if you're still eating, I apologize, but he told stories of literally having to scrape flesh off of certain electrical equipment that had been near explosions. For it to work again, they had to clean it. And he remembers those stories. This is my grandfather right here. He served in the Pacific. They went all over the place, all different types of islands. This is him in Oakland with his buddies coming home from the war. This is him teaching me how to fish. I hate to fish. I don't have the patience to fish, but he taught me how to fish. My grandfather died in 1984 at the age of 68. I remember going to that funeral. He had a military funeral, 21 gun salute. I was a junior in high school. Him and my grandmother are buried in Boston, New York, outside of Buffalo. All right, Thomas Staines. You're going to see a lot of different names here. My great-grandfather, my dad's grandfather, had a lot of sisters. A lot of sisters. They all married. They all got different last names. So these gentlemen that I'm introducing you to are my grandmother's cousins. Okay? Thomas, 27th New York Infantry, 106th Field Artillery Battalion. This group basically was sent to Hawaii after Pearl Harbor to help protect Honolulu, protect the naval base. This was one of the groups that went. You can see his age. He went in 1940, prior to World War II. Okay? This is the 155 millimeter howitzer. It typically had a crew of 11 people. You got to tow it, you got to keep the ammo, you got to load it, you got to fire it. And that's the only picture I have, surviving picture of his group. Where did he die? He was killed in action. He died in the middle of the Pacific Ocean in the Mariana Islands, on the island of Saipan. So you guys remember Tinian, where the Enola Gay took off? Okay? Saipan, Tinian, Guam. We basically went here, here, and there in order to take out the Japanese that were housed there. This is the island of Saipan. The 27th Infantry fought with the 4th and 2nd Marine Divisions. You can see where they stormed the beaches here, 2nd and 4th. This was basically a 3-week campaign. Thomas died around this very area in Death Valley. His howitzer battalion was strafed by Japanese Zero. 3 guys in his howitzer group were killed. Norman took a shot through the neck. He took another shot that severed his spine. He took another shot that went through his knee. And he had one that went through his right shoulder. He was killed instantly. He was buried. Again, he died June 29th, basically 2 weeks into the battle. He was buried in the 2nd Marine Division. they had about 3,800 casualties on Saipan. A lot of Marines from the 2nd and 4th, and then the 27th Infantry. If you read about the Battle of Saipan long enough, a lot of controversy between the 27th and the Marine Division. You had Holland Smith that was leading the Marines, and you had another Smith named Ralph Smith who led the 27th Infantry. Holland Smith with the Marines did not like, he felt the 27th wasn't moving fast enough on Saipan. So he did a little bit of this, fired Ralph Smith, and then the 27th started to advance up through here. And this is where Thomas was killed when they were strafed. But basically they were towing the 155 millimeter cannon in their 2.5-ton truck, and the Japanese Zero strafed them, and 3 of the guys were killed, including Thomas. Thomas was buried in the 2nd Marine Cemetery. For 5.5 years, his mother Edna, his dad passed away while he was in World War II. His mother Edna, for 5.5 years, petitioned the government to have his body removed from here and brought home. I have letters that she wrote President Truman. She wrote letters to his commanding officer. 5.5 years later, Thomas's body was shipped home. It took 6 months to get from Saipan to New York. And they had the funeral. And I had the privilege of visiting his grave. I put down Purple Hearts, a lot of good stuff, and remember Thomas. And the nice thing about Saipan is it's a national park environment, okay? They have a big memorial park there. They have all the names of the people that died in the 2nd, 4th, and 27th inscribed, and here's Thomas's name inscribed in this memorial. They have a flag area. See this flag right here? It is with you today. That is that flag from Saipan. Okay? I befriended Brian Piercy. He's a park ranger on Saipan. Being the nerd that I am, I reached out to the Park Service, found this guy. He was kind enough when he came to Atlanta, he had to come to Fletsey down by Brunswick for training. He brought me that flag, and he brought me a pencil drawing of Thomas's name. All right, Harold, 18 when he died. That's my father right there. That's him and his cousin Anita. Seaman First Class, 3rd Fleet. So my grandfather was in the 7th Fleet. Harold was in the 3rd Fleet. USS Mount Hood. What's infamous about the Mount Hood? Anybody know? It was an ammunition ship. It was a Liberty ship like the one my grandfather was on, but what the difference here is it contained thousands of rounds of ammunition. Okay, thousands of rounds. This whole cargo hold was full of ammunition. So what happened to it? Here's Australia. Here's Papua New Guinea. We're going to drill in a little bit. Here's Papua New Guinea. I want you to focus on this little dot right here. What is that little dot? Okay, Manus Island. Why is that important? Manus Island, this whole area had been secured by the U.S. So basically this whole area here, this lagoon, whatever you want to call it, the harbor, was a staging area for a lot of Navy ships. Okay? So Harold's ship, the USS Mount Hood, was anchored here, right there, in this lagoon. This was a whole base. It blew up. Instantly just blew up. Okay? Nothing left. 16 people survived. Well, how did they survive? They had taken a longboat 6 minutes before that explosion to shore. One guy had a bad tooth infection. They had to take him to a dentist. They wanted to pick up their mail. Blah, blah, blah. 16 guys survived. One officer with those 16 guys. What do? I tracked down that guy. Is he still alive? I had the privilege of interviewing him in 2008. His name is Lester Maddox, not the one we think of. Okay? Lester Maddox. At the time I interviewed him, he was 94 years old. He told me when they boarded the USS Mount Hood, he shook every person's hand. So he has no doubt that he shook Harold's hand when they boarded the ship. But he is the only officer that survived with the 15 other men. But that ship just blew up. So basically, Harold's body was vaporized. Completely vaporized. 18 years old. I talked to his sister many years ago. When the Army Navy came to their home, she remembers being on the stairs of their home, and there was a knock at the door. Her mother went to the door. There was a man dressed in a Navy outfit. She couldn't hear the conversation. All of a sudden, her mother dropped to the ground, hugged the guy's legs, and wept uncontrollably. She witnessed that. Harold was 18. This is the Philippine National Cemetery. This is the hemisphere. There's a fancy name for this. Hemicircle. Every Pacific veteran that's missing, 27,000 names are inscribed on these hemicircles. Harold's name is inscribed right here. This is in Manila, so he's remembered there. All right, Norman Schultz. Again, a lot of weird last names, right? My great-grandfather had a lot of sisters who married other people, okay? Norman, again, you can see his age. 3rd Army, that's Patton's Army, 87th Division, 347th Staff Sergeant, okay? The Acorn Division, okay? Luxembourg, right? We all know where Luxembourg is, Belgium, all that good stuff. Bastogne, we all heard about Bastogne, okay? When did Norman die? January 4th, 1945. Everybody thinks the Battle of Bastogne was over in late December. Well, the battles continued into January, right? So Norman's platoon was west of Bastogne. So if here's Bastogne, this is about 12 miles to Genéville. Okay? That's where Norman died. There's a crossroads right there. Okay? You drill into the crossroads. You see this creek that runs right through here. Where did Norman die? X marks the spot. Okay? That's where he died, at this crossroads. Right here is a memorial to the 87th. I visited this spot. How did I know that's where he died? I found a guy that was still alive in his platoon. I talked to him. He wrote me a very extensive letter about Norman. They called him Pops too because he was older. He described to me that they were in deep snow. So you can imagine this whole area was about 5 feet of snow. Heavy fighting. An 88 millimeter shell went off from a Panzer tank, landed near Norman, killed him instantly. George Phillips, who was in his platoon, found his body. Norman was carrying a bar gun. He said the bar gun looked like a pretzel. He said there was no visible wounds on Norman at all, except that his nose was bleeding. So basically, his insides were just, made to crumble because of the impact of the shell. This is, snow, sleet, penetrating cold, 87th. I went there and put his dog tags. I keep his dog tags on me. I've been carrying them all day. He was buried in the Luxembourg Cemetery. I had the privilege of visiting this in 2016. I was the only one in the family that's ever been to his grave. It's a long way to go. I put his dog tags. He wrote a letter home to his mother 5 days before he died. I have that letter. That is the letter right there. He says, "Thank you for the care package. It's very cold here. My canteen is frozen." He says, "I hope to write again soon." He never wrote again. Straight back here, see where that guy's standing? That's where Patton is buried. So George Patton is buried right there 9 rows back, directly back from Norman. I just think that's kind of cool, personally. All right, one last person I want to introduce you to. I told you I was adopted, 3 days old. 3.5 years ago, I found my biological mother. I found my biological father. Okay? They never married, but through that, I have gotten to know that side of the family. And my mother, again, who was 19, who had me, had an uncle, Art Watson. So he would be considered my great uncle. I finally have a true connection to the 8th Air Force now. Okay? He was in the 95th Bomb Group at Horham. So Horham is out to the west, right? Near the North Sea. He was a staff sergeant. He was behind the scenes on the ground crew, but he was very significant. He worked on the Norden bomb site, and he also worked on the supercharger, the problem they had with the supercharger when they introduced that into the B-17 engines. There was a circuit problem, and he went to Honeywell, and he identified the problem, and they implemented the fix. So pretty significant. He became a preacher after the war. I never got to meet him. He died in the early 2000s, but I finally now have a connection, true connection to the 95th. Okay? If you guys are really bored and you want to come up and see my grandfather's shadow boxes, this is very important to me. I keep that hanging in my home office. Everything I told you today is in this book. I'm not here to sell books. But it was very important for me to put pen to paper and capture these people's stories. I go into much more depth in the book. And this particular copy of my first book, I want to present it to John for his work with the 8th Air Force Museum, okay? So thank you, John. Appreciate it. All right, that's how you find me. InheritedFreedom.com. Okay? So let me take questions, comments.
Tim, I got a comment. Absolutely wonderful way you honor your family, especially those that are fallen. What do you do on Memorial Day or on Veterans Day? I know that it has to be a very special day for you because it seems like they're all special to you, the way you remember them. Anything special you do on those days?
Well, let me answer the first part. Actually, those days, this may sound cruel, but they're like every other day to me. Because every day is Veterans Day, every day is Memorial Day, and I mean that sincerely. I'm glad that we dedicate a day to that, but those special days, they've gotten pretty sobering. Again, I've met hundreds and hundreds of World War II veterans. They're all gone. Everyone that I was close to, I interviewed, I went to their home, I went to meetings, I went to reunions. They've all passed on. My grandfathers have passed on. Everybody that I knew, your father, they're all gone. And it's heartbreaking, so it's very sobering. So I think Memorial Day and Veterans Day takes on an even deeper meaning for me. Yes, sir.
Did they ever determine what caused the explosion of USS Mount Hood?
Yep. There's a debate. There is a Japanese sub-commander who claims he shot a torpedo through the subnets and was able to penetrate the Mount Hood and make it explode. There are other discussions that the discipline on the ship was not good, and they think maybe someone was smoking, possibly a cigarette fell into the cargo hold, and things went up. So there's some debate on that. But there is a Japanese sub-commander that claims he shot it.
And how many men were killed?
About a little over 300. I think 327. Yes.
Tim, I meet so many people out there that their father, they know nothing about what their father did, or grandfather or uncle or whatever. And so I even met a guy recently, and his uncle was a general, but he knows nothing about him. I mean, I'll ask him, I'll say, well, tell me about him. And it's so easy to find information on the internet now. I guess my question is, how do you get people interested in that? I can't really convince some of them that, hey, you ought to check on this. It's on the internet. I mean, you can go to the library or whatever. But is there a way, exactly what you've done here, maybe not that extensive, but is there a way that you've met somebody and said, gee, here's a way to learn?
Yep. I have a high school classmate, Alan Woosley, who contacted me a couple of months ago. He had a great uncle like me who served in World War II. All he knew was the name of the B-24 bomber. He knew the name of the bomber. He couldn't find anything. I gave him a treasure trove of information, right? What happened to the plane? How did his uncle die? All this information. There's a lot out there now on the internet that you can find. National Archives. Like for example, if you look at Thomas's death on Saipan, shot 4 times, killed instantly. I contacted the National Archives and got 60 pages of description about what happened to him, including a skeletal structure, where the shots were, everything. There's so much out there that you can find if you're patient and you ask for it. Nothing encourages me more when I have people reach out to me and ask me questions. I don't know everything. I don't know everything, but I can certainly try to find out. And I'm really encouraged when I find little kids who are interested in things like this. That's encouraging to me that their stories are not going to be forgotten. Okay? Remember, I was adopted. If I had not been adopted by that man and his wife, these stories would have been lost in the sands of time. Okay? So it's amazing journey, amazing story. What other questions?
Jim, related to that, so we're not the super research-oriented people. Like I've been lucky with just obituaries, right? If you know the name.
Yep.
Because like the funeral home will write something up, probably for the widow or the family, and they'll describe that, he's a P-51 pilot. Like in my family, I found that out last year. And I talked to this guy with my uncle. He never talked about it.
Yeah.
So he was on a B-51 in England, P-51, and so that was just, and a couple other people in my family kind of discovered more of that. It's unofficial records,
right?
But you can make it.
Well, I mean, obviously, like many of us, I've gone to the extreme, right? I'm still researching these stories, but when I find people, I don't even know my grandparents' names. You know what I mean? I don't know how that's even feasible. So there's levels of interest out there that range from where I go to I don't even know what their names are. So what else can I answer?
How's your new book? How did your new book?
Oh, I don't know yet.
Oh, you don't know?
I'm trying to make it cheap so someone actually is interested in it. Yes, ma'am.
My dad's records were all lost in the St. Louis
Fire? Yep.
Are they just gone forever?
There's been other things that they have found that have tried to recreate that, and the DD-214s are all gone, the original ones. But there's more and more like Fold 3 is a good site to go to. They have a lot of records out there. There's a lot of databases that they're now pulling together that are trying to recreate a lot of that information that was lost. You got to dig though. Yes, sir.
One good source is the Standard & Poor's 180. Standard & Poor's 180. And I got a story with my dad's in it, and I get called all the time. I'm trying to find out more information.
Good.
And get that form filled out.
Yeah.
World War II veterans.
And you in particular are going to help me fulfill a lifelong dream. I want to take a ride in one of your Jeeps. I have a Jeep. I have a poor man's Jeep. But I've sat in World War II Jeeps. I almost stole one. I'm kidding. But the keys were actually in it. Down at the World War II Museum in New Orleans. It was just sitting there with the keys in it. I thought, I can go around the block before anybody notices. But I want to take a ride one day. Any other questions? Anything you've been dying to ask me?
There's a picture in the hotel in Auburn that has Patton standing up, reviewing troops, and he's standing in the front of a Jeep, and someone's driving it. He's behind the windshield, and on the bottom of the windshield it says War Eagle. We're very proud of that.
There you go. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I'll just say I have read Inherited Freedom, and what Tim is leaving out is a lot of the back of the book or towards the end. I think it's obvious the impact of what you've done on you, but in the book you talk a lot more about, I think, the personal effect of what you've done. I think that is a well worth the read. And I
Thank you.
encourage everybody to read
Thank
it.
you.
I will say, I also belong to a group I volunteer for called Stories Behind the Stars, and we are trying to write short profiles, but we do the research for no cost, for just out of interest. I've written 250 profiles. Anyone who died in the war, regardless of where or what service, in the U.S. or abroad, we are trying to complete the profiles for all 420,000 people. And if anybody in this room says, well, I don't have the time, I don't know how to do it, I offer that I will research your relative and try to find what we can for them. And they're short, they're just a page or so, but then they're preserved in a database.
Right.
There's several out there, but I mean, I make that offer sincerely because I enjoy doing it. So.
One of the groups that I'm a member of, and I didn't highlight a tremendous amount, was Project Recover. This is one where I have to ask my wife permission, not forgiveness, not permission. So, but Project Recover does a lot of work trying to bring back veterans' remains. I mean, do you all realize how many World War II veterans are still missing? Anybody have a guess? Over 75,000. 75,000. Project Recover tries to bring every one of them home. You know what I'm excited about? They're in Saipan this week. You remember the Marianas turkey shoot that happened during this time? Okay. They're doing sonar work on the west coast of the island looking for U.S. pilots that were shot down. We primarily did most of the shooting, but there were a few that were shot down and they're trying to find them. So, but Project Recover, very good organization. So any other questions? Brent, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.